Go live. I think people will be able to see us now. Whew. Now we're live. Oh, my roommate can see us, so we're live now.
Okay.
So yeah, how's it going, Abdul?
It's going great. Ramadan is here.
I know that you're almost done fasting for the day, which is really exciting, but I'm gonna have tea. So
Oh,
don't feel left out, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because so the show,
spilling the tea.
Spilling the tea. So I wonder how many people are watching us right now. But
can you tell?
I'm trying to figure that out. I think I should be able to tell. Oh, here. New to this new technology in a time of COVID. So very exciting. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But the idea of spilling the tea, oh, there's 18 people watching us already. So, oh, I'm gonna mute myself on the video. So spilling the tea is apparently the hip thing that kids say these days when they want to hear what all the good gossip is. So back in the day when I was hip, we used to say, what's the 411? But now they say, what's, spill the tea, like spill the gossip. So every time I've ever given a webinar, not a webinar, this is like the first one. Anytime I've ever given a presentation and talked about Catholic social teaching, anytime I've ever seen anyone give a presentation on Catholic social teaching, the subtitle almost always is Catholic social teaching, the best kept secret. Because if you talk to people who've been Catholic for, their whole lives, and you say, what's Catholic social teaching? Can you name a principle or a foundation of that? They'll just look at you blankly and have no idea what you're talking about. And then when you start listing them, people will say, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And there's lots of Bible quotes and teachings from popes and from bishops and things that we have in our teachings, in our tradition for a long, long time, but people just aren't aware of it. So part of this is just to have people, getting engaged and getting to know what their faith is. So I'm just gonna wait for a couple more people to join because I think we're just a little bit busy. So I'm gonna talk about my tea right now. And I hope you all have a nice cup of tea with you. Feel free, if you're watching on Facebook, you can type in the comments. Let me know what kind of tea you're drinking. This tea that I have right now is I always used to drink it with my grandpa with a little bit of lemon and honey, and he called it Indian tea, and I don't actually know what it's called. And that's probably racist, so I apologize. But just, I think, when I think about why, so today we're gonna talk about human dignity. And so when I think about, the kind of models that I've had in my life who have helped, teach me about respecting people, no matter, what job they might have or education level or anything like that. Like every job has value in our society. Like those are just a little tea that we would drink together. So to kick it off, I hope it's a good omen for the work that we're starting here tonight with, and that we're going to be hopefully continuing on for the next couple of weeks anyway. So it's good to see that some of you have joined. Hello, Brandy and Mrs. Schiller. Yay, thanks for coming. And Adrian from Moose Jaw. That's so awesome. So if you're here, there's 21 of you. So you could just like type your name, say hi. If you have a cup of tea, like let me know what you're drinking. And yeah. So Abdul, what's your favorite kind of tea?
Orange peoc.
Orange pico, just plain Jane, hey? Do you put milk in it or honey, sugar?
Just a sweetener.
Just, oh yeah, sweetener.
Sweetener.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite morning drink. So
yeah, you don't really drink coffee, do you?
No, I'm a tea drinker, not a coffee.
And you lived in Italy for a little while, and we'll talk about that a bit later on, but and you still didn't acquire a taste for coffee even when in Italy.
No, like, they like more macchiata.
Oh yeah, the espresso drinks.
Those macchiata, espresso, cappuccino. But I don't know, I grew up with tea. Like that was our morning tea and bread. Mm-hmm. So you grew up with that and you kept going on. And I never had the flavor of coffee.
Coffee is like, oh man, my roommate got a espresso maker for Christmas. And so that sound when you're steaming the milk, and if you've ever like bought a espresso or anything like that, you will definitely know the sound that I'm talking about. But it's kind of a bit aggressive, but I think it actually is the sound of happiness, because I know I'm going to be getting a nice warm coffee drink very soon. So, a couple more people from Moose Jaw. Rhonda, hi. Listening while I get supper ready for my kiddos. That's so awesome. Thanks. So it's a little bit after 7, so I think we'll get started with the formal presentation here. So everyone, this is Abdul that you see here. He's above me on my screen, but I think he's actually on the side. Abdul and I work together in the social justice office at the Archdiocese in the Pastoral Center. And Abdul, basically, if he wasn't working at the Archdiocesan office, I don't know if I would be either, because he does the bulk of the work for refugee sponsorship. And so that's a little bit what we're going to be talking about today. But so just so you know who this lovely gentleman is here. And hi, Annette. And so we're just going to start off with Catholic social teaching. We're spilling the tea. We're telling everyone, this best kept secret of the Catholic Church. So Catholic social teachings have been around formally for 129 years. The first encyclical that was written that really has become part of the body of literature that is Catholic social teaching is Rerum Novarum. It was written 129 years ago. And since then, popes have been writing encyclicals, which just means letter, talking about social concerns, speaking into the context of the time, and trying to help guide and lead Catholics so that they have a way to care for, to instill human dignity with everyone. And that's basically the foundational principle of Catholic social teaching. And so when I give presentations, I always say, if we just treated everyone with respect, if we acknowledge their dignity that they have, that's inherent from God, because in our scripture, and in the Jewish scripture, at the very first chapter, when we hear about creation of Adam and Eve, we're told that they were made in God's image, and that because of that fact, we know that there is something special about humans. And so we don't negate nature or the rest of creation, because our creation story tells us that God noted that every aspect, after every day of creation, God says that it's good. And so there's something special about creation, but when God creates humankind, they are very good. And because we're made in the image and likeness of God, that means that there's something special, there's a dignity, a respect that we are owed to one another and that we have in our own lives. And there's nothing that we can do, nothing that we can say that ever removes that. There's nothing that removes us from God's love. There's nothing that negates that. There's no categories that we can place on a group of people and make them other so that they are excluded from that. And so what we're going to talk about with Abdul in about 5 minutes or so is that there are particular groups of people that our society often likes to marginalize, to push away, to not extend the same warmth and welcome, care, compassion, and respect to these people. And so refugees are one of those groups of people. They are not the only group of people who share this, but I just really enjoy working with Abdul, and I miss him so much because we've been working from home.
I do too. So COVID-19 is becoming a separation of everybody.
Yeah, so I was like, ooh, this will be a great way to highlight one of the functions of our office, and to kind of let people know a little bit about that. And then it's just a great excuse for me to spend some time chatting with Abdul, and also to let the rest of everybody else know how great he is. So hi, Diane. Hi, Joe Materi. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Lots of Moose Jaw people. That always makes me happy. So I think what's really important for us as Catholics is to know that even though I just said that Catholic social teaching has been around in a more formal way, or modern Catholic social teaching has been around for 129 years, it's not anything new. It's not like the ideas that we're going to be talking about on this show, every week, that this is somehow something that hasn't been from the very beginning. Catholics, before they were called Catholics, before they were called Christians, when they were just kind of mentioned as followers of the way, one of the things that helped Christianity spread was that early Christians were caring for widows and orphans. They were tending the sick, the lame. They were giving food to those who were hungry. They were burying the dead. They were setting up, taking care of orphans. I already said that. Doing lots of really great work. And so it's these, we might call them the corporal works of mercy, or the spiritual works of mercy, that we understand them a little bit now in a more formal way. But a lot of our Catholic social teaching is founded right on those very first decades. And of course, within the Gospels that talk about the ministry that Jesus did. And if we go back, like I said, even in Genesis, if we look at Leviticus, Deuteronomy, our Jewish forebears had these kind of tenets of faith ingrained in and a part of their understanding of God and how to live in right relationships. And so this isn't anything new. So when I say 129 years, be assured that these have been around for millennia, not just centuries, but millennia. And so I think it's really a great way for us to get back in touch with our roots as a faith community, as people of the word, and as one of the three Abrahamic traditions. So the Jews, like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, are all Abrahamic religions. And so there are a lot of concepts and ideas that we share. Some of our scripture is shared. And of course, loving our neighbor, loving God, and having that kind of servant heart is something that we all share for sure. And so, like I said, Abdul is Muslim. He's fasting for Ramadan right now. So we're going to ask him some great questions, but nothing too hard because he hasn't eaten all day. The sun goes down at 8:14. So then he'll be restored for the next day. So Abdul, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for coming. And like I said, I am really happy to see your face and to be able to talk to you. And I know a little bit about your story because we spent a lot of time, chatting and sharing about ourselves. But I think probably most people don't know about your story starting in Eritrea and kind of your journey to Canada. So if you would like to just share that with everyone, I think just so we get a sense of who you are and why you do the amazing work that you do.
Thank you. And I really miss you too. So hopefully this COVID-19 goes quickly so we can resume what we have been doing, helping refugees and so on. My name is Abdul Ali. I am Eritrean by birth. Now I'm Canadian Eritrean. I left home Eritrea in 1975. I was 18 at the time, and I was given responsibility for my younger brother, who is 3 years younger than I am. And we didn't have even anything, money or so on, because the war was going on, came to the city and fighting was there. And my mom, God bless her, she sold one of her wedding rings and she gave us, it became about $25 US for both of us. So we rented a camel and we had our 2 traveling bags there and we were walking on foot. It took us to cross the border from Eritrea to Sudan 7 days. And we were sleeping during the day, walking at night because there was surveillance, airplanes and so on that was bombing anybody that was going. So luckily, and by God's help, we reached Sudan and we registered with the UN. And that is first protection we got from the UN. We didn't stay in Sudan for a long time. To make it shorter, we got travel documents with the UN and then went through the Nile River into Egypt and then from Egypt into Libya. That is where I finished my high school and first degree university. Graduated 1981 from Bachelor of Science, majoring in statistics and mathematics. And by working for 6 months in an insurance company in Libya, again, my migration continued to Rome, Italy, where I stayed for 3 months. And in Rome, the few dollars that I brought with me was finished within maybe 3 weeks because I had to stay in a hotel and so on. But luckily, this is why I got really associated myself with the Catholic Church. In Rome, there was so many organizations like Caritas, WCC, OCE, all of those belong mostly like funded or by the Vatican. So I approached them. They didn't ask what my religion is, where I came, who I, my, what do I believe and all that. They just looked at me as a human being who needs the help. And they sheltered me, they gave me food, they protect me from any bad stuff. And I owe that to them, to the services that they provided. And that got into me, really, as a refugee myself, what can I do to help other refugees like myself? So when I was in Rome, I was helping other refugees that were coming to register to Canada, to the United States, to Sweden, and so on. And within those 3 months that I stayed, that was my activity, basically, helping. And at some point, a friend of mine, because everybody that was coming new, even though we were sitting in a coffee shop, everybody would come and ask me, not my friends, to either take them or help them. And he said, maybe you have something in your forehead here written that I can help people or something.
I love it.
So we laughed at that one. But after 3 months, I came. In fact, I didn't know nothing about Canada. The immigration officer, he said, I am sending you here. And here was Regina. So the only thing I asked him is, does it have a university? And he said, yeah, actually it used to be a college, but now it is a university by itself. Okay, to me, Canada is the same because I don't know anybody, nothing. I came and there was an organization which is now a bigger one. At that time, it was the director and one social worker or settlement worker, the Open Door Society that was open. And it was open in 1975, I think, due to the Vietnamese influx of refugees that the boat people when they came. So I immediately got myself because that's one thing which I do. So I got involved with the Open Door, but I was going to university and did an accounting and so on. When I came out, I worked with the Open Door first as a volunteer, and then they hired me as a part-time, then I became a full-time. I worked with them for 7 years, helping refugees from Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, at that time Czechoslovakia, which now separated into Czech Republic and Slovak, Poland. Polish was also a problem at that time, and they became more refugees, some from Romania. And still Eritrea and Ethiopia was the majority of refugees to this date. Hopefully things would work out for them in the future, but that's how I was being with them, helping refugees. Then I start having a family of my own, I got married. I start having children.
His wife is so lovely, by the way. Yeah. I finally got to meet her, and she's wonderful like you.
Actually, I went to the refugee camp after 7 years in Regina. I went back to the refugee camp and I got married. I knew her from back home. So I sponsored her and she came. And now we have 3 lovely children, 2 daughters and a son. So everybody is graduated from university and they are working. except my son, because of the COVID-19, he's still my wife is actually one of the essential services. She's a nurse at Wascana Rehab, and she's still going back and forth. She's doing her duty and so on. So then I left Open Door. I got an opportunity to go and work for CRA now. It used to be Canada Revenue Agency or Canada Border Services, all mixed together. And at that time, GST was a new program. I started with GST. So when I started, even though I have a diploma and a degree, I started in the mailroom to work there. And after a while, there was an opportunity to apply as an officer position level. And I did apply. First, we took a test, written test. I scored the highest among the applicant. And after that, we came to an interview, but the manager who was in charge of the selection process, he was not going to give me the position. He said, first, how come you come from like a mailroom and trying to become an officer and so on? I said, well, because of my abilities and qualification and the result that is in front of you. Well, he said, like, you have to work harder, like you're supposed to come to the telephone line first and then another, and then you become an officer. I said, well, that's not what my results says. No, I don't know. He says, well, you have an accent. I say, well, I was not born here. And I came here, like, I was 24 when I came. And unfortunately, this is my accent. At least, don't you understand me? Like, I am communicating really, like, I understand you, you understand me, but that is not going to go anywhere. It's going to be staying with me anyway. So he said, sorry, maybe try next time. Then one of the union representative, he said, no, you have to appeal it and object because this is kind of racism and so on. I said, no, like, I'm just starting right now. And I don't want to create enemies and problems and so on. This is an old school people. Like, he's an older gentleman. So I have my ways. So instead of confronting him and appealing and becoming his like a foe, I made him to be my friend. In fact, I greet him in the morning, ask him if we start going for coffee, believe it or not. So
you were drinking coffee back then?
No, with him, like, going for coffee. So I have my tea, he would have his coffee. And he got to know me better. And he regretted his decision anyway. And he apologized and so on. And I said, that's okay. Then I started like, okay, how do I do things and how I can be like, this is just to get me like, a job, put a bread on the table for my family. But I really like, enjoy mostly working with people and helping. So how it happened was there was some people who were sponsoring refugees through a beloved friend whom we have still like, 38 years we've been friends, Marianne Skorobad.
Oh yeah, she's great.
She's a very great woman. I get to know her, and she was doing sponsorships through the Archdiocese. And I said, like, you know me. Oh, Abdul, she said, like, I know you, but you never ask anything. I said, well, like, one thing, two things. We need to help some refugees. There are so many Eritrean Ethiopians. And at the same time, how can I be your assistance or help you? Well, she said, okay, form this. We formed the Eritrean Community for Peace and Justice. Mm-hmm. And I start working with her, like helping refugees. That was my introduction to the Archdiocese of Regina. And after a while, she retired from that job. There was a gentleman who took after her, and he got a full-time job somewhere else. And they didn't know there was Bert there as a social justice coordinator, but he was not doing more refugees. Mm-hmm. So David asked Bert, and he said to him, like, the only person that taught me how to do things was Abdul. So he can help you. And if you could bring him in your fold over here to the Archdiocese. And through David to Bert, and then Marianne was being asked. She said, if he says yes to you, you are lucky, kind of thing. So, and I said, okay, like, I'm going to be doing, still I'm helping you, but like, if you want to put me into your payroll or whatever, then I'm still a full-time employee with the CRA. Mm-hmm. But I have Friday and Saturdays that I could be willing to work with you guys. Oh, they said, that's good. That's what we want. And that's how I became started. And that was almost 15 years now since I've been with the Archdiocese Roman Catholic helping refugees, not only just help, doing sponsorships, visitations, counseling, family dynamics, like filling all the applications to them and so on. And that without even marginalize it or small it or making it like that one. Tasha is one of the greatest person that I work with because immediately she came, she had some knowledge, but within just a few weeks, she became expert on refugees itself. If I leave tomorrow, I'm leaving.
You're not allowed?
In a good hand, it means really like, I work with several people before her. They didn't have any clue, or they didn't want even to make themselves know what entails all of that. But this is what we are doing at the Archdiocese. Hopefully, this is just a small, in a nutshell, who I am, what I do, and how did I happen to come to the Archdiocese and to Regina. So Regina is home. Mm-hmm. I lived in Regina since I came from Rome, and it's been 38 years. In fact, last April was my birthday, which is April 5th was my birthday. So I came the same time within that period of time. So 38 and counting.
That's great. So I just thank you so much for sharing that, Abdul, because I know the first time that I kind of heard your story, it was really touching, and I think it just I have such a privileged place where I get to hear a lot of a lot of refugee stories. I get lots of emails, asking for help, what the trials and the suffering, the trauma that people go through, and the hopelessness that a lot of people experience. And the thing that struck me was, maybe I had been working in this position for maybe 3 or 4 months. And I guess just before I start this story, I'll just invite you, if you have some questions that you really want to ask, if you type them in the comment section on the side, then we'll answer those for sure. But I know there's a little bit of a lag between Abdul and I speaking and what you guys are seeing on Facebook Live. And so I'll tell this story, so by the time you hear it, you'll probably be ready to type a question. But I had a young, I don't know, I think she was maybe like 19, 20 years old, a Syrian woman, and her brother came into the office. And I mean, we all kind of know about what's happened in Syria. So her and her brother and her father had been resettled to Canada. And her mother and other sister had been resettled in Germany because of a civil war that happened, that they made no decisions. They had no power to really contribute to the situation of Syria. They were resettled in different countries. And so they came to my office to ask how they could sponsor their mother and sister from Germany to come to Canada so that they could all be together. And I had to tell them, well, I had to ask Abdul first, but then I ended up having to tell them that Germany is not a refugee producing country. That's where refugees will go to be resettled. And so once they are there, they can't be sponsored to come to Canada. And I think it was at this point that, like Abdul, because his family, you have family, your mother is in Australia with some of your siblings.
My mother and 3 brothers and 3 sisters in Australia, a sister in Sweden, and a brother in Ottawa. At least I have one closer to me.
And it, so I mean, like, Abdul, you didn't make any decision to have
as a refugee, honestly.
A civil war.
Yeah,
right?
as a refugee.
As a refugee, you don't have that control.
Like a choice to make. Everybody wants something to be protected. So whatever you've been assigned to, you accept. At this time, yes, the government is trying to unite every family together. But if someone is in one country, the other one is in a different country, and the UN is applying for them here and there, whichever comes first, you grab it. You don't have a second chance to say, no, I prefer this country, I prefer that country. So that's how most of the refugees, you would see them scattered everywhere, a family.
And I just think like how close my family is. I was reflecting on this, like I have 2 brothers and my mom and aunts and uncles that are, I mean, everyone is pretty much Regina or Moose Jaw. And then I have 2 cousins that are in Saskatoon and their families. And we're all really, really close. And Saskatoon's not that far, actually. And so if we want to get together for, well, not Easter, but for other events, pre or post-COVID, we can and we do. And it really struck me as I was thinking about, like, what if a civil war broke out in Canada and we were, sent all over the world? Like, it's heartbreaking. And this poor woman and her brother, like, she was just bawling in my office because I had to tell her that, you know, she's probably not going to see her mom and her sister for, I mean, years. Like, at least we have, you know, Zoom or Skype, but it's not the same. And so it's these little ways that people have their lives ripped apart little by little. And so I guess, Abdul, like I would ask you the question of coming to Canada, being a refugee, being a new Canadian, like what are some things that we can do, people who've been here for, you know, a generation or two or more, like what are some things for us to think about how we can help to restore dignity back to new Canadians, to newcomers, to visitors to our country?
Well, there are, anybody could do in 3-4 ways that could be involved in a newcomer, a new refugees that comes. One, involved through sponsorships, through your parish. That if you are involved in the parish, then you could be part of the sponsorship group and part of the committee, so that when the refugee comes, you could help them, orientate them, basically, like, you know, taking them shopping, taking them to the doctor, maybe like, you know, taking them to the park in the summertime for a barbecue, or just to have fun there, to play soccer, baseball, and so on. That would ease the anxiety that the new refugees or new Canadians that come, because they don't have anyone. They would be isolated, it means. So be friended with them and try to become sometimes a mentor, like, you know, it's what they have. Other thing is to host a family. Like, there are refugees not just coming through the Archdiocese, whom we have sponsored, or the Anglican Church. There are government-sponsored refugees also, who they don't have anyone, but they have the Open Door Society just to find them rental places, to show them the first time to go how to shop, maybe. And that would be it. Like, you know, they will take them to the doctor maybe for examination and so on. But afterwards, they are on their own, because there are other new refugees that are coming, and the employees there and settlement workers would be devoted to the newcomers that would come. So becoming a host to a new refugee, meaning you are becoming, like, you know, a family that is, they lost it behind or they left it behind. So you are a surrogate family kind of thing, so to them. And that reality or that attachment, honestly, I could see today people who have been hosting some families, still that relationship to date is still available, even though they moved, some to Vancouver, some to Toronto, some to Hamilton, and so on, yet still we get a phone call during holidays, wishing us something, and so on. So people still remember what they have done. So that would give them hope and restoring their dignity to them. And most of the people think, like, you know, a few in the community perhaps, that refugees are taking our jobs, this and that. In reality, when you look at it, most of them, what are the jobs that they are doing? It is the night jobs, so whatever you call it, like, the cleaning offices and so on, who are most of the Canadian, like mainstream Canadian, does not want to take in reality. The other thing that I see, I came as a single person myself. I enriched Canada by my wife, whom I sponsor, and I had 3 wonderful kids. That means I was not just doubled, maybe quadruple or so on. So increased population of Canada, which are the future. Like my kids right now, as I said, they went to school, graduated, but who are serving Canadians. 2, one is working as a correctional officer in the provincial jail. The second one, she took after her mom. She's a nurse in Vancouver. My wife is a nurse. So 3 of them are in the front line serving Canadians at this time. So I become the refugee, okay, first generation Canadian. They became Canadians, but also serving their own country, Canada.
Yeah.
So that is what we have to look at, like, future generation are Canadians serving Canada and so on. They are going to produce so many things to Canada. So that is what we need. And eventually, like going back, as I keep saying to myself and always remind myself that we are descendants of Adam and Eve. We are human. That is the family that we are, and so on. So we need to help one another. There is, God has said, I have created you to be different, different colors, different tongue, different countries and so on. But you are also one people that I created.
Yeah.
So that motto that I have, like, just keeps me going. Like, it is your nature to give. So as we get up in the morning, thanking God for the day, we have to look after less fortunate brothers and sisters. We had to get involved, helping refugees and less fortunate Canadians that among us, not just like newcomers, but also Canadians who have less fortunate than the rest of us. So it's help thy neighbor. So that's what it's supposed to be. So for refugees, the difference is they don't have relatives. Relatives and so on comes in the second generation or third generation. But the first generation Canadian or newcomers, they have to rely on the existing or the ones who came previous or prior to them. So
right, they need that support in that community. And we all do, right? That is a very human thing. So if we can help provide that for people who don't have that, I mean, that's a really, really essential piece to human development and human flourishing in our society. Well, just human flourishing, but especially in our societies, that really helps people to integrate and to feel valued, to have worth, to have autonomy, to make decisions. Like, these are all values that we hold dear. And so it's a really simple way, when you think about it, just to like be someone's friend. That's a really simple way to help extend those values to others and to empower them to have a good quality of life that we ourselves would want.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, I want to be cognizant of time. I don't have any questions yet. A lot of people saying hi, but I'm just wondering if anyone has any burning questions for Abdul or for myself. Yeah, I'm nervous. We're Facebook Live, you guys, so bear with me. And Barb just joined from Moose Jaw. Hello, and Bessie, Michelle, welcome everybody. So I want to make sure that people have the opportunity to ask a question if they have one. And like I said, Abdul and I, when I post this video, I'll put some comments on Facebook, but this video will also be posted on YouTube. And in the comments, I'll put my email. So if anyone has questions, they can send them to my email and I'll respond. I guess the other thing that I really wanted to highlight too is that Pope Francis has taken the plight of migrants and refugees very seriously. And so there's an office at the Vatican, has a fancy title name. It's the Dicastery for Integral Human Development. And they deal with many different things, but one of the topics that they deal with is migrants and refugees. And so Michael Cherney, who is a Jesuit priest, he was just recently named a cardinal. He's Canadian originally, but he's been in Rome for the last couple of years. He's a good friend of Bishop Don and a few other people that you probably know. He works in that office and he does a lot of work with migrants and refugees. And so they have been putting out, this office has been putting out bulletins, letting people know what are some of the issues, especially in this time of COVID-19, that are affecting migrants and refugees disproportionately opposed to, other people who are not being unjustly incarcerated, for example. So a lot of countries will, the States is one of them, Thailand, Venezuela, Guatemala. There's a lot of countries that are arresting people and putting them into prisons that they're not receiving, social distancing. They are not receiving necessarily the healthcare that they need if they are sick, whether it's COVID or not. Before COVID, this is definitely a problem as well. Families are being split up, children are being split apart from their parents, from their mothers, which is hugely problematic and highly illegal. And but this kind of practice is able to happen because xenophobia, so the fear of the other coming into your country, is so great that it allows us to not view someone who's from a different religion or a different class or a different ethnicity, who's someone who speaks a different language, to be able to not view them as human, to not treat them with dignity, to not treat them with respect. And this is really problematic, obviously. These are some extreme cases, but there are lesser ones, like we hear about microaggressions and things like that. And so I think this is a great opportunity. I'll post this bulletin and they come out regularly. So if there's more information that you would like about this, I'll also post a link to our website. And we have information about refugee sponsorship and a little bit about what's going on. There's great information on the United Nations, UNHCR, United Nations.
UNHCR. United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Acronyms. Yeah. There's a lot of great information on just to kind of get a picture globally of what's going on, people who are displaced internally, so within their own country, who are forced to leave their community because of environmental issues or military, political, or religious persecution, things like that. Then there are refugees, so people who have had to flee their country and they get a specific status from the United Nations, and they are unable to return back home for fear of death or persecution. And then there are asylum seekers, and those are people who have also left their country of origin, so their birth country, but are still unable to return, but they might not fit all the criteria that the UN has, or the government that they have fled to might not recognize the authority of the UN in matters of refugees. So there was a 1952 Geneva Convention that was signed, but not all countries signed it. And so like Israel, for example, or Thailand, if someone flees one of those countries, they will never be considered an official refugee, not because they're not, but just because the government doesn't recognize that authority. And so these are the kinds of people that we're helping. So I'll put some information up on the website as well. And I have a question. Woo-woo. So Michelle asks, how can young people help? They might not be able to take on hosting a family themselves. Are there organizations that would guide and mentor teens in how they can serve? You know, Abdul, like Open Door, or is there tutoring classes or anything like that that young people can help refugees and newcomers?
Yeah, actually, there is the Regina Public Library have a tutoring program for refugees, and they match them. Also, the youth program at the Open Door Society, where they could match youth with also youth refugees and even families, that they could be tutoring them in English. Also, if there was in that family like young people, those young people could take them out for a soccer game or a baseball games and so on. Doing that, they could improve even their language, communication skills, and that is how they could be involved. The third one is if they are involved in their church. Then there is the social justice committee within the church, whether they could sponsor refugees, or if they are unable to sponsor refugees, then they could become, as I said earlier, they could host a family, or they could host some friends. So this way they could get involved with. And for young women, also there is the Immigrant Women of Saskatchewan, Regina chapter. Also, they do help female refugees when they come. Tutor, there is a tutorial also, and so on. So there is a counseling services that they could do. So all these 4 factors, people could get involved in.
That's great. Thanks, Michelle, for the question. I think that's really important for us to recognize that it doesn't just have to be through fundraising and sponsoring a family, but there's a lot of little things that if you don't have, buckets of money or hours of time to donate, to help volunteer, to resettle and to spend time with refugees and to take on the bigness of and all the obligations of refugee sponsorship. There's a lot of little ways that we can help newcomers. And I just thanks Lisa and Randy for joining. That's great. I'm just really impressed with how many people are coming out. So I just really appreciate that, by the way. So a big thank you for you guys for giving your time and learning a little bit more about this. Like I said, there'll be my email if you have more questions. Maybe you watch this and some questions come to mind the next day. Love to answer them. Please share this with your family and friends, people that you think would be interested. Like I said, it will be up on YouTube shortly, and so the link will be there. So you can go to Archdiocese of Regina, and there will be a social justice playlist. So I have another show that I've just started, Caring for Our Common Home, where we talk about the encyclical Laudato Si, and so those will also be up there. And Abdul, just a huge thank you for coming out and volunteering yet more of your time and your expertise with the people in the Archdiocese of Regina, and being an advocate for new Canadians and for newcomers to Canada. So I just really appreciate that. And I guess I'll just take this opportunity to...
I would love, thank you for this opportunity to express myself, how people can get involved within the Archdiocese social justice department, whether it is refugee or other, that would be great. If there is any questions that you would like to know about refugees, how to get involved, you could email Tasha at the at the Archdiocese website or email. I will be hopefully, because the province is now easing a little bit, so it might not be every day, but at least to go to the office maybe once or twice a week to answer some of your questions. So feel free anytime. If you have any questions, I would love to help you out or answer your questions, hopefully to my best abilities. Again, thank you for everybody that is listening and watching, and I appreciate that. It's almost 8 o'clock.
So we gotta let you go. We gotta pray.
Yeah, it is Ramadan is fasting time. So I have to go get prepared a little bit for 10 minutes before I break my fast. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate it, Abdul. And thanks again for everybody coming out. And I'll have that up and ready, and so you can comment and share some of that material and send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much, Abdul. Everybody else, have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.